As Mark reported, there are many threads to this story. For analysis, we begin with expert insight into the legal side with attorney Ed Whelan, a distinguished senior fellow at the Ethics and Public Policy Center and the EPPC chair of Antonin Scalia Constitutional Studies. Ed, thank you so much for coming back on our show. What is the impact of the leak on the legitimacy of the court? I know the Chief Justice called for an investigation. Is it likely that someone will be caught?
Well, we'll see. I don't think the leak will have any impact on the court's legitimacy, but it will certainly have an impact on the trust that justices have with each other and with law clerks. It's a remarkable breach of the court's longstanding norms. There have, to be sure, been some lesser leaks in the past, often after rulings, in some instances before, but the idea that someone would leak to the press a full draft of an opinion of a pending case, especially a big case like this, is just remarkable.
And what does this mean for security measures at the court and the dynamic for new clerks coming in for the term? You know this as a former clerk.
Well, the Chief Justice will need to figure out what additional measures need to be taken in terms of confidentiality to make sure that something like this doesn't happen again. In terms of security, there are also, I'm sure, lots and lots of death threats against the justices right now.
But let's discuss the draft. A February draft opinion probably means it was already workshopped at some level. How likely is it that it will stick?
Well, this was, on its face, the very first draft of the opinion, so there's no reason to believe that any other justice had reviewed it, much less signed on to it. Look, I think it's an outstanding draft, and it would not surprise me at all if the opinion that is issued in the end comports very, very closely with this draft. That said, there's plenty of room for other justices who would be part of the majority to weigh in and propose changes, perhaps even demand changes as a condition of signing on.
And Ed, for those that aren't court watchers, in terms of the vote, could that change? Sure.
Look, in theory, you could have a unanimous opinion with everyone signing on to this draft. Look, anything can happen. The fact that a draft proposed majority circulated in February says nothing in theory about what the court will end up doing. Obviously, it's a hopeful sign for those of us who hope to see Roe versus Wade overruled.
And so it's not a coincidence that it was leaked and that political pressure was something that was being looked for.
Well, look, we don't know for certain where the leak came from or what its purpose is. The most natural inference in my judgment is that it was leaked from the liberal side in order to produce exactly what's happening right now, a torrent of political pressure on the court. Lots of law professors weighing in on how supposedly the draft opinion is flawed because it doesn't embrace all of their progressive pieties. But who knows? I mean, there are any number of other possibilities, and so it's until the leaker is nailed, I don't think we can know anything for certain about the motivations.
And Ed, you obviously read the draft. What does this mean for Roe and Casey?
Well, if this draft becomes the majority of the opinion of the court, we will have a clear and forceful, and in my judgment, masterfully written repudiation of Roe and Casey, which means that the highly contentious abortion issue will be restored to our elected representatives in the states, first and foremost, also perhaps in Congress. And we will have the challenge after 50 years of working through debate and discussion with our friends and neighbors and family members, just what abortion policy in our respective states going forward ought to be. It's an opportunity to undo so much of the damage that has built up over the last 5 decades. But let's not kid ourselves. 5 decades of Roe has normalized in the minds of many abortion as something that ought to be available. And it would be, I think, a tragic mistake if pro-lifers were to overreach in insisting on perfect legislation at the expense of what is actually attainable. I think whichever side overreaches, and there's plenty of reason to suspect that each side will, but whoever overreaches is likely to get punished pretty badly.
And so it's not a complete ban on abortion. Everything goes back to the states, and we have much more work to do. Ed, is there any change to?
It's not. I'm sorry. It's not any ban on abortion. It's saying that this is a matter for the democratic processes.
Ed, thank you so much for your analysis. We appreciate it.
Thank you.